Hello, vinyl community. Thought I would chill a little bit for this one, as I would like to present to you my vinyl biography. With thanks, of course, to Dylan over at Noble Records, who is celebrating his 750 subscribers plateau. Congratulations, Dylan. He's having a contest and he wants to hear about our vinyl biography. So I thought I would put some things together for his questions and present to you this video. I'm going to do this in reverse. I'm going to do the bonus question first. There are a variety of questions about our likes, about our past, about significance with records, and I thought I would start with the bonus question, which is essentially why collect records? What is the significance behind collecting records? And for me, it starts way back when I was a kid. When I grew up, I had parents who were both big into music. My dad especially was a classic rock guy and still is to this day. So when I was a kid, there was always music playing in the house. And if it was coming from the basement, it was loud in nature. So when I was very young, I even to this day have memories of being a kid, being down in the basement at night with my dad, who would quite regularly at night would lay on the floor in the dark listening to music. And I remember being a young kid, 3-4 years old, laying next to him just listening to music, absorbing it in the dark. So not having any visual distractions, just really focusing on the music. So because I had music all around me from early on, and with good focus too, it wasn't just in the background stuff, it was really listening to music and absorbing music. That has stayed with me to this day. And not just music and the power of music, but records and handling records and looking at records, bringing them home when you purchase them, and just enjoying that first listen. That has always stuck with me. So that's sort of the roots and of the significance of why music and records mean as much to me through all these years. So 5 questions for the contest. I'll start now with number 1. First memory of a record. My first memory of a record, and thankfully I actually have a photograph which still illustrates this. Christmas morning, 1978, and that was our address. This is a picture of my brother and I. And that's me on the right there with my very first 2 records. And while I only have one of them, I still have it to this day. So this was my very first memory of a record. And this is the actual copy. So this was 1978. So I would have been 5 years old. So that's my first memory of record, and I actually keep the photograph in the outer sleeve with the record, just sort of as a keepsake and a memory. Question number 2, first album love. What was the first album that I fell in love with? Well, because music for me really started at a really young age, I would say the first records that I really got into was around 1983 or so, 1983, 1984. Michael Jackson's Thriller was a big one. But I'm going to say this one was a really big one for me because I was a really big fan of these guys way back then. Duran Duran, 7 and the Ragged Tiger. huge fan. I was 10 years old when this came out. This is still the actual copy that I have. It's still in great shape. And again, having records, you know, that kids had when they were young, that was one of the great things that I enjoyed to this day, was taking good care of records, and knowing how to clean them and properly store them and handle them. All came from my dad, so it shows through to today. So this was probably my first love. As I say, I was a big fan of these guys, and this was the first album that I got from them. So Duran Duran. Question number 3. Most money that you've paid for a record. Got no problem showing it to you, and I also don't have a problem telling you how much I paid for it. As Dylan said, it would be juicy. So I agree. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with saying how much they've spent for things, but the most expensive record that I paid for was for this Let It Be box set. And this is a Canadian pressing. Has a big heavy booklet inside of it. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. This was only released in a handful of countries around the world. The US excluded. I don't believe this was ever issued in the United States. But this was the most expensive piece that I ever purchased. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of what it's going for these days, I looked up just before I did this video to see on Discogs to see what the price selling range has been. And it's, for this pressing Canadian, it's been between $130 and $1,100. I paid $120. Very happy to have this. Question number 4. Album with the greatest significance. This was a tough one. A lot of albums have significance. As we all sort of experience music, we all know to what high level music means to us, what records mean to us. And one of the great things about music is memories. So talking about significance with a particular album or a band or whatever brings back a lot of memories, and there are several. We all have several great memories of albums that just carry great significance in our lives. But I'm going with this one because, and ironically, I just showed the Beatles Let It Be box, and I'm not sure I've shared this in any of my videos before, but when I was a teenager, I was a huge Beatle fan, nut actually, freak. And there was a stretch for several years where they were pretty much all I listened to. They were all I collect, they were all I purchased, books that I read, everything was just Beatles. How boring. This is the album that snapped me out of that. And not only was it really my first big introduction to the Stones. I mean, I know about the Stones and all their big songs and stuff, but listening to this record from start to finish for the first time when I was in my Beatle fanatic days really opened the door, not only for the Stones, like I say, but it opened me up to listening to other music and really branching out. Got me out of that Beatles gutter, if you will. No offense to Beatles fans, of course. But Sticky Fingers really sort of was the gateway into broadening my horizons. So this album has tremendous impact for me. And the last question is, what is a holy grail? There are several. Some I have, many I don't have. But the very first one that came to mind when I thought about a holy grail is Elvis's Christmas album. I'm a big Elvis fan. I love Christmas, and this is just one record that I looked for a long time and always wanted to get. And I've had this maybe now for about 4 years or so. Original pressing, it's Canadian. And what's difficult, obviously, for original pressings for this, it's very difficult to find. It's difficult to find US pressings, but this is a Canadian, as I say. And what's special about this is that it has a maroon RCA Victor label, which is even rarer and more difficult to find than US pressings. So very happy to say that probably my biggest holy grail is one that I own. And there you go, folks. 5 questions plus a bonus. Dylan, congratulations once again on your 750 plus subscribers. It's well deserved. I love your videos and your channel. You do a great job. If you're not familiar with Dylan or his channel, folks, I will leave a link below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.